This is another episode of Ask the Lawyer, and today we're going to ask the lawyer about a story straight from today's headlines, and one that, if Dallas attorney Marc Lenahan of the Lenahan Law Firm has his way, could mean the shutting down of some very busy parking garages in Dallas. I'm Rob Rosenthal with AskTheLawyers.com, and attorney Marc Lenahan is here to answer our questions today. Marc, thank you for making some time for us.
Hey, good morning, Rob.
This is such a strange and ultimately tragic story, so take us back to the beginning and give us a recap. What happened?
So any other day for some guests at the most famous mall in Texas, they went there to grab a bite, and you could picture this. They went to open up a door to the department store there, and it was locked for the evening. The mall itself was still open, but the department store closed beforehand. They stepped off the curb, headed towards the mall entrance. Instead, they didn't know that what they were stepping into was a racetrack in disguise. The parking garage had become the scene of drifters who like to start at the bottom and race to the top. And they've been doing this, we think, for about 8 years. And despite the fact that this is the wealthiest mall around, they didn't take the time or the money or the effort or the caring to prevent it before these two best friends stepped off the curb and into a speeding vehicle.
Well, I'm imagining that didn't go well. What happened there?
You know, the driver had no intention of hurting anybody. He had driven by slowly a minute before, made sure the coast was clear. Did not know that these folks were coming back from the entrance. And when he sees them, he tries to avoid them. Can't. He's going a million miles an hour, but he loses control. He himself hits the wall so hard that he ends up in ICU for a long, long time. And of the best friends, one is slammed into the wall so hard that he's killed instantly. He was a triathlete, an Ironman for goodness sakes, and there was nothing he could do to get out of the way. And the other best friend was actually sent over the edge of the building, falling 2 stories. And 8 months later, he's still in the hospital.
Wow. And so you're representing the families of these 2 young men, is that correct?
That's right. We've got both their families.
And this guy, I mean, you've handled tragic cases all over the country, Marc, but this one's different because the driver of the car didn't set out to hurt anybody, right?
That's right. So I've been doing crime victims work for the last 2 decades, mass murders all over the country, and homicides, in Texas, everywhere. And usually in the case of like a mass murder, the criminal is trying to hurt somebody, and we try to figure out a way to help the victims. But here, the perpetrator, the driver, had no intention of hurting anybody. He was trying to avoid them, thought he'd made sure the coast was clear. That makes it very, very different psychologically on how the jury is going to respond to who's at fault in this case.
And in your mind, who is at fault in this case?
Well, he certainly messed up big time, and
right.
The jury's absolutely going to blame him. There's nothing wrong with that. But that the mall, with all the resources that they have let this go on for 8 years, the jury's not going to be happy about that. This is a place where parents are pushing kids in strollers all the time. As I said, it's probably the wealthiest mall in all of Texas, one of the wealthiest in the world. There's not a good excuse that they didn't invest some money and time in making this place safer. In fact, this is a mall that, because of its wealth, has had a history of the problems that wealth brings, which is robberies in the parking lot. Wealthy customers are good targets. So when this happened, I assumed that I would get there and find that the garage was just filled with cameras. But it's not. Even after all these years, the mall continues to whitewash its history of crime and try to hide from the public.
Well, let's get to that in a second, but first I want to back up to something you said. How did you know this has been going on? You said 8 years. Would you say at least 8 years, maybe longer? And how did you find that out?
Well, we were looking through a bunch of videos that we're not allowed to release to the public. They're under court order because they're just terrible to see, to tell you the truth. And we noticed some skid marks at the place where the death occurred that shouldn't have been there. They didn't make sense. They weren't consistent with the driver having created them. And so the question was, well, my goodness, well, those skid marks were already there at the time of the death. This had already happened before. And so we went back. There are hundreds and thousands of photos we had already taken, and they were right there in front of us. We just weren't looking for them. the entire mall is covered, the entire parking garage is covered with skid marks. And as we go back through the aerial and the satellite photos, excuse me, of the roof, all the way back to 2011, you can see it, the whole history of donuts on the roof being washed away and repopulated over and over and over again for 8 years. And I say at least 8 years because the truth is the aerial photography before 2011, well, the resolution is terrible. So what's there, we just don't know. You can't see it. But, constantly those the camera photos are getting sharper and sharper, and you can just see them. It looks like a close-up of the moon with the scarring just so clear.
And so now your contention is this dangerous behavior has been going on for at least 8 years, and maybe the mall didn't encourage it, but it's your contention they didn't do anything to discourage it. Is that correct?
They didn't. I'm sure they assumed that nothing would ever happen. That these people who do this, rightfully, don't intend to hurt anybody. They're drifters are kind people. They're sociable people. They intend to do nothing but enjoy the evening out with each other, brag about it on YouTube and Instagram and things like that, of course. But they are not intending to hurt anything. The only damage they plan on doing is to their own tires. So the mall probably had a thought in the back of its head, if they thought the way a lot of big businesses do, which is, if anything happens, our insurance will take care of it. If anything bad happens, our insurance will take care of it. It's really a common mindset for big businesses when they do bad things or when they let dangerous things happen.
But now that's where we get a little twist here, Marc, because your firm, this case is not going to end probably where the insurance company just pays for it and the mall goes on business as usual, and this is free to happen again. Tell us what little twist you've put on this.
Yeah, well, always in our case, we want to get the money that our families deserve. And we also always want to make changes so that this doesn't happen. But here we're pulled out a law that doesn't get used very often. It is a law that lets us force the property to be closed down for an entire year if the jury says, yeah, Marc, you're right. These people have known that crime continues to recur on this land and haven't done anything about it. So if the judge and jury agree with us for one entire year, every parking lot at that mall is going to be shut down. Now, when the owners take that to heart, they're not going to be able to dismiss the idea of that with, well, the insurance will take care of it, because that's not the kind of harm that liability insurance covers. That's going to go right to the heart of how a mall operates. And I guarantee by the time that year is done, those parking lots will be safer.
Marc, is your goal ultimately to get these parking lots shut down for a year, or is your goal to cause some sort of change that can keep this terrible event from happening in the future?
Yeah, if we get to the point where the judge orders the parking lots closed for a year, that's not going to happen for 2 or 3 years. And that's simply too far away. These parking lots are dangerous now. So yeah, we want NorthPark to come to us, the mall, and say, let's figure out how to do right by the families. We feel responsible. But that discussion is going to include fixes that need to go into place right now, right away. We don't need any strollers in the course of anybody on their racetrack in those garages.
Marc, obviously we're still very early in this process, but I appreciate you getting us caught up to speed, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you as the case moves on to get the latest. Thank you so much for your time today, as usual.
Absolutely, Rob. Thank you, sir.
That's going to do it for this episode of Ask the Lawyer. My guest has been attorney Marc Lenahan of the Lenahan Law Firm in Dallas, Texas. If you're ready to choose a lawyer that lawyers choose, make sure to visit AskTheLawyers.com. Also, please take a second, subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the button at the bottom of the screen. Thanks for watching. I'm Rob Rosenthal with AskTheLawyers.com.